but we got to start. I'd like to call this meeting of the Wilson County Board of Education for December 13th, 2021 to order. Members of the board, what is your pleasure in regard to approval of the agenda?
Madam Chair,
Mrs. Powell?
I move we approve the agenda for the Wilson County Board of Education for December 13th, 2021.
Second.
It has been moved by Mrs. Powell, seconded by Mr. Mercer, that we approve the agenda as presented. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion, let it be known by the sign of aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Let the record reflect that the motion carries unanimously. Please note that this meeting is being televised on Spectrum and Greenlight Channel 22 and live streamed through the Wilson County Schools YouTube channel. The public can also view the meeting through links on the Wilson County Schools Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter pages and the Wilson County Schools website. Face coverings are required to be worn during the board meeting. Please make sure you are wearing a face mask, and if anyone is in need of a mask, some are located at the back of the room. At this time, I'll ask Mr. Breen if he will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, to be followed by a moment of silence.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Thank you. Members of the board, we have next on the agenda a call for the approval of the minutes. These are for the November the 8th regular board.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
item 2.
I am so sorry. Item 2, organization of the board. I'm going to turn this meeting over to the superintendent for the purpose of the yearly organization of the board. Dr. Mills?
Board members, at this time I'll take nominations for chairman.
Dr. Mills,
Yes, Mr. Mercer.
I nominate Dr. Fitch as chairperson.
Mr. Mercer.
I'll second.
Nominations for Dr. Fitch, Mr. Mercer, seconded by Ms. Barnes.
Dr. Mills.
Okay.
I'd like to nominate Ryan Breen.
Second.
Okay, nomination for Ryan Green by Mr. Boykin, seconded by Ms. Boyette. Any additional nominations? Okay. Hearing none. Okay. All right, this time I would ask for a vote on the first nomination for Dr. Christine Fitch for chairman. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
You want to show of hands, or?
Yeah, show of hands since we have one man, so we'll be good. All those in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4. Opposed? Okay. And I think that takes care of it through acclamation. Motion to close through acclamation and Dr. Fitch take over chairman.
Motion close.
All right. Dr. Fitch?
All right. The floor is now open for nominations for the vice chair of the board.
Madam Chair, I'll nominate again Mr. Mercer.
All right.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that Mr. Mercer's name be placed in nomination for vice chair. Are there any other nominations? Hearing none, I think we can do acclamation for vice chair, Mr. Henry Mercer. Members of the board, thank you for the continued confidence to place me in the position of chair of the board. I'll now go to the approval of the minutes. They are for the November 8th regular board meeting, November 22nd work session, and December 8th work session. What is your pleasure?
Madam Chair,
Mrs. Barnes?
I move that we approve the November 8th regular scheduled board meeting, November 22nd work session, and December the 8th, 2021 work session.
Second.
It has been moved by Mrs. Barnes, seconded by Mr. Breen, that we approve the minutes of November the 8th regular board meeting, November 22nd work session, and December the 8th work session. Is there any discussion?
Madam Chair,
Mrs. Boyette?
in the board work session of November the 22nd,
Okay.
on the second page, and the very last bullet, it says, Ms. Boyette advised that she would like to see a third scenario with the closure of 2 elementary schools. I believe that I said 3, Stantonsburg, Hearn, and Winston.
Right.
That's all.
With that addition, are there any other corrections?
Madam Chair,
Mrs. Barnes?
I move that we approve the minutes for the work session, November 22nd, with the amended.
Okay. And the others to stand as presented? Was there a second?
Second.
Mr. Breen. All right, it's been moved and properly seconded that we approve the minutes of November the 8th regular board meeting, November 22nd work session, with the stated correction to be found on page 2, with the addition of Winstead in the bulleted item indicating the third scenario to be called for in the December the 8th work session. Are there any other corrections? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion, let it be known by the sign of aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Let the record reflect that the motion carries unanimously. Next is the chairman's report. And again, thank you, members of the board, for re-election as chair. At the November North Carolina School Boards Association Conference, there were several awards that were presented, and Dr. Mills is going to highlight those in just a moment. But I do want to share that the award for exemplary program grand prize that we submitted for the WASH clinics was presented and shared at the county commission meeting with Ms. Ellen and the staff members from the various WASH clinics, so that they are aware that they received that we received that award for that programming and for their continued support of the school system and what they are doing for the students and staff in Wilson County. As the semester comes to an end, it seems like just yesterday that our semester started, but we are now approaching the end of the semester, and we know that our students will be engaged in final exams. I'd like to take this time on behalf of the board to wish our students all the success on the upcoming final exams, and I'd like to extend to everyone a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, to our students, teachers, staff, and of the Wilson County Schools. And I hope that the holiday season will be filled with cheer and provide an opportunity for rest, relaxation, and rejuvenation to one and all. And that concludes the chairman's report, and I will now turn it over to the superintendent for his report.
Thank you, Madam Chair, board members, and audience members. As Dr. Fish mentioned, I have a few awards to share with everyone. We attended the School Board Association annual conference in mid-November, and we're excited that we had several winners of some contests that are sponsored every year. The Wilson Area School Health Centers, the WASH centers, as everyone knows them here, were recognized with the 2021 Award for Excellence in Educational Programs Award. WASH was the grand prize winner in this category and recognized as an exemplary program that maximizes student achievement. The Board of Ed nominated WASH for the award because of how much the school-based health centers have benefited our students and staff, especially during the pandemic. I think we're very fortunate to have those clinics in place in our system, especially in times like these. The centers are located at Forest Hills, Bedingfield, and Hunt, and any WCS student or staff member can be seen by appointment at WASH for wellness or sick visits. A big, huge thanks goes to the WASH staff for providing excellent care. Dr. Kim Almquist, Francis Winslow, Bobby Hill, Tasha Williams, and Tanisha Artis. The WASH centers would not be possible without the partnership, our incredible partners of the Healthcare Foundation of Wilson, so please thank them. The Wilson County Health Department, Teresa Ellen, is amazing. The Wilson County Department of Social Services and Wilson Forward, we are so grateful for their support, and I think that WASH and its winning is a testament to the power of partnerships, and I think that's one reason why it was recognized as the sole winner across the state this year. So congratulations to everyone that has any impact with that and involvement with that, and it's nice to be recognized outside of our county lines, but we certainly recognize the award-winning service we get, support we get every day from WASH centers in our schools. So thought you want to see that and get a chance to celebrate that, and we hope there's more awards and accolades for that to come. So congratulations everyone for the WASH. We also had several students that were recognized at the school board's conference. For the elementary poster contest, students were asked to draw a picture expressing their thoughts and ideas about their return to school. So Sophia Garcia, a second grader from Rock Ridge Elementary, won first place in the elementary poster contest in the K2 category, and her artwork depicted students sitting together smiling and laughing in the cafeteria. Kind of hard to beat that one.
Can we give it?
Yeah, I love that one. So if you see Sophia, congratulate her, and we're getting that one framed for her so she can have that one and her family can have that one. So it is nice to see them at the tables in the cafeteria and certainly coming back. But again, first place from the school system in the elementary K2 at the school board's conference. We also had for the middle school video contest, students were asked to create a video showing how their school has grown in the face of adversity. Springfield Middle School was a third place winner in this category. Their video described how teachers are supporting students by being their role models, encouraging them, motivating them, and being there for them when they need someone. And we hope to invite Sophia and the Springfield students in the video to a future meeting to recognize them. All this kind of happens pretty fast with the conference and the turnaround time for the December meeting. Speaking of celebrating folks and recognizing folks, on November 19th, myself and senior staff, we had a chance to have a fun lunch with the school level teachers of the year as the Wilson Education Partnership recognized them and had some festivities. And it was nice to pause and spend time with them because those teachers, like all of our teachers, work hard for our students in our system every day, and it's nice to see them in a different environment to do that. Robin Williams and the WP and the business partners really go all out to support our folks and make it special. And we'd also like to thank Mr. Mercer and Ms. Powell for visiting the classrooms of our Teachers of the Year to hang their special Teacher of the Year door plates outside their classroom doors. I think some other board members have joined in as well. We provide the door plates to the teachers, and it's got their name on it, their school year, and that they were Teacher of the Year. I know Mr. Mercer really likes to go out and do that and getting a chance to use his power tools and drilling our doors, but it means a lot to the teachers to have that recognition in our schools, so that's always a fun time. We do have a couple more things to celebrate and recognize tonight that are visual. For the past several years, I've held a contest for elementary students to design the Christmas cards that I send to colleagues in Wilson and across the state. And many systems do those electronically. I still prefer good old paper. And it's something that my staff and I enjoy looking at each year as we ask the schools to participate. And so we have a really hard time picking picking anything to represent us because they're all really neat and fun, and it really does remind you of why we're here and what's important. So we've got some of the winners tonight. Again, it's very difficult, but these were the 4 winners we selected this year. And thanks to Amber Lynch and the folks in the print shop that did these for us this year. We took care of our own printing, and I thought they came out really well. The winners this year were Bria Harris, a 5th grader at Jones, and you can see her rendition. I can't even stay in the lines. Tawfiq Aziz from New Hope Elementary, a 2nd grader with the penguin. Autumn Barnes from Lucama did the close-up, the zoom lens of the reindeer, which I really like this one. They were all so neat. And then our last, we tried to pick 4, was Kaylee Chapman from Lucama, who did another rendition of the snowman for us for our holiday cards. And so I want to thank the students and their teachers and their schools and their families for sharing their artwork and artistic talent for our school system as they represent us going out to the community and across the state. They really did a great job, and I know their cards will do for you like they did for me. They really put you in the holiday spirit, and we have much to be excited about and recognize the talents of our students, but also the happiness that these will bring as they represent our school system. And they will get a copy of these as well for their families also. So congratulations to these 4 students for the work they did, and I would give them a round of applause as well. And if any of you want a challenging assignment, you can come try and pick, because it's hard. So it's hard to believe too, but it's almost time for winter break. December 21st is an early release day for our traditional schools, and students will be out for break through January 4th. Our early colleges start their break this week, so they have a early release day this Wednesday, and then students will be out through January 4th. So we certainly wish our students well who will be taking exams, and we hope everyone has a safe and relaxing holiday with family and friends. So, Madam Chair, that's my report.
Thank you so much. It is the portion of our agenda where the public is invited to give us their input. At this time, we have 8 persons who have signed up. Each person is granted 3 minutes for his or her presentation. This portion of the meeting is for the board to hear matters of interest from the public. However, obscene or vulgar statements, personal attacks, and statements reasonably perceived to be disruptive or imminently threatening to the orderly operation of the meeting shall not be permitted. The first person who has signed up is Colby Hunt Rhodes regarding proposed closing of Stantonsburg Elementary. Ms. Rhodes.
Madam Chair, members of the board, due to the extraordinary nature of what we're here to talk about tonight, which is the closure of one of the longest existing schools in Wilson County, I'd like to request 2 additional minutes.
No, our time limit is 3 minutes.
2 minutes. Okay, I'll try to get it in. Thank you for allowing me to speak tonight. I'm Colby Hunt Rhodes, Mayor of Stantonsburg. With me tonight are members of the Stantonsburg Town Board and citizens. We're here to show our concern, our shock, and our steadfast opposition to closing Stantonsburg Elementary School. There has been a school in Stantonsburg for over 200 years, showing the importance that we place on our community school. Thank you for your decision to halt this process until current forecast information is obtained. Using statistics from 2019 tainted by COVID conditions do not paint a clear and accurate picture. In fact, Stantonsburg was one of a small number of elementary schools that saw an increase in student enrollment year over year. Stantonsburg is not the most underutilized building. It does not have the smallest population. We have exceeded student growth for the last 6 years. 3 scenarios that were presented to the board were to close Stantonsburg Elementary and bus the students to Barnes. Barnes has been a D or an F school and has been North Carolina Restart School due to low performance. Will parents want to extend their child's day with busing and extend a lower performing school and send their children to a school that feeds into Darden and Fike when our children feed into Spate and Beddingfield? I have a map that I'm going to pass out for each of you to review. And this is,
Your
the map
time,
is on the
if you want to
second-
just hand that to Mrs. Boyette and she'll pass
Okay,
them
yes,
around.
okay. The map is on the second page, and if you'll just open it up, there is a drawing of the Stantonsburg area, and I'll hold mine up so you can see this. This part right here, this yellowish part, we call yellow, this part and this are the Stantonsburg area. This dark blue part is the part that we have information concerning. This data is our current residential power meters in this district. We do not have the information on this middle portion that is from Wilson Energy. So we're only giving you half of the information that we have. As you see down here, the total residential power meters, and that's not commercial, are 791. Currently under construction as we speak are 41, and the current future proposed is 164, giving us 205. When you put all those together, it's 25% an extension of what our power grid is right now. That's what it will be proposed with our subdivisions. On the front cover, there are some facts that I just told you about, and there are 15 houses that were just built on Old Stantonsburg Road, and of those houses were students that went to the middle school, high school, and the elementary school. 33% of those homes had elementary, just elementary age students. So if you take that 33% and you project that to these, the ADM that might be covered for our future proposal, you'll see that we have 67 elementary students added. But that's just half of that because we don't have the information for the other.
Thank you so much. Your
Okay.
3 minutes have expired. Thank you. Next is Ernesta Butler, keeping Stantonsburg Elementary open in our community.
Hello, my name is Ernesta Butler, and I live in Stantonsburg, and I'm a very active member of my community ever since I've been there. I'm a foster care mom, and I'm here in support of Stantonsburg Elementary School. The school itself has been a blessing to me. It's only 2 minutes from my house. In essence, about 2 miles also. My kids could walk there if they needed to. They don't have to get on the bus, which is a good thing. That minimized them getting in trouble. And as you know, that being foster kids, they need a lot of love and support. And Stantonsburg staff has been that for the kids. We communicate all the time. They call me. I can text them. They text me. Or I can call the school if the kid is having a situation. We're not far from home. Stantonsburg Elementary is a positive zone for our community. It's the heartbeat of Stantonsburg, and I'm excited for being in Stantonsburg. I remember when I got my first placement, and my kid was going to Gardner Elementary. Me and my husband would have to drive over 400 miles a month, going back and forth to get that student. And when the student finally got on the bus to come to Stantonsburg from Gardner, he would be the only one. It was the saddest day when he would be leaving in the morning and waving goodbye, because he was the only kid on that bus. So now I'm so excited that the kids can go to the school in the community. And if they're having a meltdown or something, they can call me and I could be there in no time at all. So I just pray that you make the best decision in keeping Stantonsburg Elementary where it is now and all the staff that's there. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Julia Newton regarding elementary school closures.
Good evening. My name's Julia Newton. I live in Wilson. I represent Seeds of Hope Wilson, which is an organization whose mission is to support the students, staff, families, and neighbors of Vick Elementary in East Wilson. I'm here tonight to urge you to reconsider the closing of Vic Elementary School. I appreciate the challenges the board faces to make decisions that affect everyone. I know you want to serve every Wilson County student as best as you can, but I think it's so important for the Vic families and community to keep the school open, to give it the support that it needs, and to honor its special importance in Wilson history. I'm the community garden coordinator at Seeds of Hope. We run programs for students that allow classrooms to come to the garden and participate in gardening and cooking activities that are rubric and standards-based. We teach STEM concepts using interesting and engaging activities that students remember because they're fun. Students who have repeated exposure to the garden build up a body of knowledge that not only helps them learn physical and biological science, but also how to feed themselves and how to care about the earth. I love to see bright, eager students in the garden, tasting, touching, harvesting, and learning. Whether they're pulling up carrots or handling earthworms, their hearts are full of wonder, and that is priceless. As I've been working at the garden the past few years, I've gotten to know the neighborhood better. I've lived in Wilson for 25 years, but only visited this neighborhood for the first time about 6 or 7 years ago. At first, I was very taken aback at the condition of this neighborhood. There were so many empty and seemingly abandoned houses. There are no places to buy fresh produce anywhere close by, and many in the neighborhood do not have transportation. As I've visited the garden daily for the past 3 years, I've seen so many changes. I hear hammering as houses are renovated and full of families again. I talk to people passing by about the rich history of the neighborhood and about the gardens that they grew with their parents and grandparents. I have been gifted with some of the best food I have ever tasted from the kitchens of generous neighbors. I see the Vic Elementary community as a true community where neighbors look out for each other, and the presence of the school has so much to do with that. Rather than closing this school, it should be celebrated and supported. Its special place in Wilson history should be common knowledge. If we're indeed one Wilson, let's come together to keep Vic Elementary alive and thriving. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Priscilla Morello, keeping Vic Elementary School open.
Good evening. I'm Priscilla Morello and live here in Wilson, and I represent the Hand in Hand Partnership from Winstead United Methodist Church, which has worked with Vic Elementary for more than 21 years as we've had volunteers in the school. I'm also the founding director of Seeds of Hope Wilson, which also works closely with the school, as you just heard from Ms. Julia. We appreciate the enormous task facing you and Wilson County Schools as it tries to make the best possible decision regarding the students of Wilson County and school usage. We take this opportunity to bear witness to our support of Vic Elementary School and to ask you not to close this school. If you close Vic Elementary School, then a substantial daily lifeline to the East Wilson community will be cut, and the families and students and the community run the risk of falling into deeper community neglect. Closing Vic Elementary would deprive an already marginalized community of the daily light and sense of purpose brought by this school to this neighborhood. And how do you count the cost of that? How does a struggling community overcome the loss of pride and purpose that would happen with the closure of this historic and integral school? Many Vic students walk to school, and many parents and families count on this neighborhood school for the school events and programs that are provided, for it is true that many of the families associated with the school have no or limited transportation. The state of North Carolina and Wilson County schools have poured funds into making a difference in student academic outcomes at Vic over the past few years. Why would those efforts be tossed aside with the closure of this school? It takes time and sometimes years to see the impact of school improvement grants. I call on Wilson County Schools to give Vic Elementary the opportunity to realize and document the work that has been done. It would be better if the city and the school system decided to continue investment in Vic Elementary School and in the East Wilson community. It starts with not only not closing Vic Elementary School, but in making a greater commitment to invest resources and manpower to transform this school and ultimately this community. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Kathy F. Webb, closing Stantonsburg Elementary.
Yes, good evening. I'm here to speak on behalf of Stantonsburg Elementary as a grandparent, and I'm going to talk about some personal things. I remember I taught school for 23 years at Fike, and I remember in the 90s, I believe, the early 90s, we decided to go to neighborhood schools. We had been busing and redistricting, busing kids all over the county. That's one of the best decisions they made. I don't know, and especially for elementary. Elementary kids, you don't realize when you put them on a bus to bus them miles away, they feel like they're going to the end of the world. And they need the comfort of being in their community. And then I want to talk about some of the same things that they've mentioned, but as I live out in the county, but I often drive in and walk to pick my grandson up. And I have met lots of families, as some of these people have mentioned. They walk to school to take their children to school. They have no cars. One lady can't even drive. And they do that every day, no matter what the weather is. And we had a Christmas program the other night, and these families were there. There are 3 families that I have met that have no transportation. I see them walking to the grocery store because they have no transportation. So if you decide to move our kids to B.O. Barnes, sure, you can bus the kids, but you're not going to bus the parents to help them stay involved with their kids' lives. So I hope that you will not close Stantonsburg or not move them to B.O. Barnes. Thank you.
Thank you. Vanessa Anguiano, Language Justice.
Hi, my name is Vanessa Anguiano. I'm a junior at Hunt High School. I'm here today because I want you to know about an experience that I had when I was in the 8th grade. In 2018 at Springfield Middle School, I was asked to help a student who had trouble doing her work because of her language barriers. We both spoke different languages. She spoke Arabic and a little bit of English, and I speak English and Spanish. But I didn't speak the language in which she mostly read and depended on for her education. I agreed to the task, but I also let my teacher know that when I couldn't handle the task anymore, I would make it clear. I was patient and calm with my fellow student, but as time went on, I was asked for more and more. Many assignments later, I was asked to be assigned to a new partner. I asked to be assigned to a new partner. But I was returned with a harsh answer, no. I had tears in my eyes, and I felt furious because I was asked to do something as a favor, and when I knew I couldn't handle the stress that was put on me, I was denied the right to change the situation that was affecting me in so many ways. I would do assignments and projects all on my own, while everyone else had a partner to do them with. She got every grade I got, and with 0 effort put into it. She was given my hard-earned grades. My mental health was affected by this situation. Yet today, Wilson County Schools still relies on students in their school system to do their job for them, never considering how it could affect other students who are put in this situation. In retrospect, I realized that holding resentment towards my fellow student was met. Because I was mad at her, I felt like she was abusing me and my work. Now I realize it was never her fault. It was the school system's fault. It is your responsibility to accommodate the special needs for every student. Yet the student's needs were placed on me, a 14-year-old child. And I know I'm not a special case. And I know this has happened for many years and is still happening across this district. How much child labor are you going to employ before you decide to do something? You want to know something outrageous? There are Wilson County educators that tell their Spanish-speaking families that they should be proud of their children for having the skills and knowledge to translate in 2 languages at their age. We are made to believe that we should be proud of your lack of resource and our resilience too. This is unethical. You need to find resources for language justice now. There are plenty of Spanish speakers in Wilson that could become full-time employees for Wilson County Schools. If your argument is that there are no qualified Spanish speakers, then invest in them. Make them qualified. Because what is your alternative? To continue to exploit children? Our multilingual families deserve better. I am proud of myself for being here today and telling you what I have been through. But I'm here because I don't want this happening. I don't want anyone else to go through what I've been through. Do what's right. We need language justice now. Thank you.
Thank you. Ernesta Ramirez, partnering with community organizations.
Hello everyone, buenas tardes, and thank you for hearing me today. My name is Ernesta Ramirez. I graduated from the Wilson Early College Academy in 2016 and went on to attend Meredith College, where I graduated in 2019 with a double major in communications and Spanish and a minor in pre-law. The trajectory of my education here in Wilson County was shaped by 3 words my mother told me: no tengo papeles, I don't have papers. At the time, I didn't fully understand the meaning behind these words, but after seeing my mother defy all odds, I realized I needed to have the best grades, go to college somehow, and efforts of one day petitioning for her. One of my pivotal points was attending WECA, where I finally started understanding the concept of college and where I started my personal journey of accepting my identity as a Latina woman, something I had to slowly piece together with no resources around me. When I started my application process, I had so many questions, but there was one I did not know how to ask. How would my mother's legal status affect me? I applied to Meredith, and when I was accepted, the first thought that came to my head was, how can I even afford this? Although my teachers tried to help me with FAFSA and allocating resources, no one knew how to help me with my distinct situation, and I soon realized that my path to college would not be the traditional route. As soon as I surpassed one obstacle, I ran into another. It is because of this that I feel it is very important for our school board to partner up with community organizations like Casa Azul de Wilson that can be the bridge for students between the unknown and their dreams, to work together to provide workshops that can not only mentor non-traditional students, such as DACA students, students with undocumented parents, among others, but also their parents, to help explain to them the financial resources available for their children so that they do not discourage them from seeking these opportunities. It is important to note that many immigrant parents want a better life for their children with conditions different than those that they had to leave their motherlands for, but more than likely they do not know how to guide them through the processes of higher education. And for situations similar to my own, it is crucial for students to have someone to share their secret with, without fear of repercussion, to have someone understand the depth of what it means. For a long time, my identity as a Mexican American meant that I was an outsider. It meant that my mother's stay was unwelcomed, with a ticking bomb looming over us. It meant that I limited myself. But now, through my college education, specifically through my Spanish major, I have redefined my Latinidad to mean that I am bicultural, an ambassador of 2 countries, that I have a strong voice, morphed from my broken English and my broken Spanish, that I no longer live in fear. Rather, I live to help others not fear. And that is why I stand here today in efforts of seeing these partnerships be built to equip all of our students with the aid that they need to be more than they could have ever imagined. Thank you.
Thank you. George Leach, proposed school closings.
Good evening. My name is George Leach, and I'm speaking as an individual citizen of the community. I have given you 28 years of my 40-year educational career, and I am willing to give more. The issue of closing schools in Wilson County has created indignation among the general population and intense concern in the communities whose schools are on the docket for closing. Over the years, we have closed schools as conditions, needs, circumstances dictated. Most citizens would agree that these changes were improvements. Time brings change. Change should bring improvement, and improvement should bring progress. The current issue of school closings seems to be improvement in the use of classroom space. It seems this administration is seeking efficiency and accountability. We should applaud the administration for such noble goals, but the community is asking at what cost? School buildings and names are legacies within communities, and those legacies promote pride and patriotism in the community. All changes to set aside school legacies causes sadness, create community disruption, and bring disagreement. To close the proposed schools in our community without logical and compensatory alternatives will be disruptive to students and parents and may affect the children's achievement and emotional stability. These changes involve our most precious entity, our children. We assert that we want the best for them, and we mean it. We know they are the posterity of our community. So we humbly ask here tonight that in this decision, the children come first. I have used such words as accountability, legacies, student achievement, and adolescent emotional stability as tenets of decisions for putting children first. I want to thank the board members for the pressing questions you have asked among yourselves. I believe the answers to these questions will bring the right decision. Next, I want to thank Dr. Mills and his staff for seeking the greatest utility of our educational resources. The community expects you to continue these efforts. Finally, somewhere in the repositories of my heart, I believe you will render on the side of the parents and students when this decision is made. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. We thank each of our speakers for sharing their input with us. Members of the board, at this time, we will consider what actions are felt to be most the appropriate method for addressing the concern raised by members of the public. As we have been entertaining the discussion of the closures or reuse of the schools, we are fact-finding. There have been no decisions that have been made, and we are still in the process and will be continuing to meet on this issue. But in order to address the persons who have come before us tonight, what is your pleasure? Your options are to direct the chairman to respond to the concern on behalf of the board, to direct the administration to respond to the concerns, to refer the matter to a board committee, to refer the matter to the administration, or to place the matter of concern on the agenda for a future meeting. We do know that there will be future meetings in regard, but in regard to their speaking tonight, what is your pleasure?
Madam Chair,
Mr.
I
Breen?
think it would be most appropriate if the administration responded.
I agree.
All right. Dr. Mills and administration, we'll ask that you respond to the persons who have addressed the board tonight in regard to their concerns.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Next on the agenda, committee reports. We'll begin with the Administrative Services Committee, and that is Mr. Mercer as chair.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This afternoon, the Administrative Services Committee met with proper administrators in attendance and others. We had 2 information items and 4 action items. The first of the information items was regarding maintenance uniform contract. And I think that Dr. Williams, and please fill in any gaps. In the past, we had had 2 separate contracts, one for uniforms, one for mops and type things. And we have the opportunity to have one contract with one company to cover both of these, and it will be at a savings to the county.
Yes, sir, that's correct.
I think it was, was it uniform and dry mop rental service?
Yes, sir, that's correct. Uniform dry mop rental service, and the administration is recommending the firm UniFirst.
Okay. Any of the people in attendance at the Administrative Service Committee have any additional information, or anyone have any questions? Hearing none, let's go to the second information item, which is Wilson County Schools COVID-19 updates. It's all yours, Dr. Williams.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Mercer. At Administrative Services Committee meeting today, I gave updates on the current dashboard numbers, both for Wilson County Schools and the COVID information for the County of Wilson. For this meeting, as of this morning, we had 1 positive staff case and 13 student cases that are active now, with 33 student active contacts and no staff contacts that are active at this time. Also gave updates in regards to the Wilson County Health Department data that Ms. Ella provided this morning. From that data, the average cases per day for the last 7 days was 18. The percent of tests that are positive was 53%. The percent of population with at least 1 dose of vaccine is 49%. The percent of population over the age of 12 that's fully vaccinated was 57.3%. The percent of population over 5 years of age that's fully vaccinated was 52.3%. And the health department, Ms. Ellen did make a note that the Pfizer booster is now available for 16 and 17-year-olds. In regards to transmission rates and transmission data, on the CDC chart for Wilson County, that has moved from orange to red on that transmission chart. The only other note that we made was there was an update to the toolkit on December 7th. There were no changes made to the protocols in the toolkit. The addition to the toolkit was that 5-year-olds and up, 5 to 11-year-olds are now eligible for vaccination.
Thank you, Dr. Williams.
Yes, sir.
Anyone present at the committee meeting have anything to add, or anyone have any questions? Hearing none, let's move to the action items. The first one being the discussion and consideration of face coverings, if we were to continue those or not. It was, the sentiment of the committee was to continue face coverings. We have very few days from now to Christmas, and we have a very early January board meeting, January 10th, and to be discussed again on the 10th. Anyone have any comments or questions?
I think we just got to vote to approve.
Well, I mean, I'm going to make a motion. Yes, thank you. I'm going to move right along. Hearing none, on behalf of the Administrative Service Committee, I move the full board approve the continuation of the resolution that requires face coverings of employees, students, and visitors in Wilson County school buildings.
Second.
It has been moved by Mr. Mercer, seconded by Mrs. Powell, that the board reapprove the resolution for Wilson County Board of Education concerning face coverings by employees, students, and visitors. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion, let it be known by the sign of aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Let the record reflect that the motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Your next item, Mr. Mercer?
Yes, ma'am. The second item, action item, was meeting with the CPA architect, architectural engineering, regarding the track and ADA renovations at Bedingfield High School. Yes, I knew he's here.
Okay.
Do we want to?
If you want to recognize him, or if you have questions.
Okay, I think there's gonna be some additional questions.
That'll be fine.
Do we have a place for him?
He comes to play.
Mr. Boyd, if you could come up to the podium so you could, respond to some questions. Sure. I think may be asked. Yes, sir. Thank you very much. Today, we discussed option 1, option 2, and I think the group was leaning towards option 1 with in addition to that, which made it option 1A, I guess, would include new fixtures in the bathrooms and concession stand at Bedingfield. I think that's where we left it, but not having information in front of us has now been provided, and there are some questions, I think.
Well, I think that the information was before us, but it was up on the screens, and
Yes.
there were board members who had difficulty in seeing the screens and had asked that the hard copy of the information that was presented be made available to us. And so that is what you have had, and that is what has been passed out as you began your report, Mr. Mercer.
Yes,
I do
ma'am.
know that Mr. Borkin had some questions in regard to what was seen or not able to be seen on the screen. So, Mr. Borkin, will ask if you had anything at this point that you wanted to question.
Yes. With option 1, do you have a breakdown of the restroom facility?
So the restroom, as far as a cost estimate,
As far as, yes, sir.
the one line item on there that is related primarily to the restrooms would be that 42,000 at ADA accessibility to restrooms. And then that number is comprised of,
Where do you see 42?
right on the Palacio Collaborative.
So ADA accessible.
Are you on the short form or
restrooms on
the?
the short one, 42,000 right there.
And that number is basically coming from that larger Palacio Collaborative breakdown that you guys have in the other document that has all of the line items together. And pretty much what that entails is painting, new toilet partitions, moving that one toilet to create the ADA accessible stall.
All right. Second question. Why are we going with 3 inches of asphalt? Is that standard for a track?
I'm gonna have to get back to you on that with my track consultant. They are Fitfields, and they have designed this, and they design tracks all over. I'm gonna assume that what they've got is standard. They're not going over and above frivolously with their design, but I can get you that answer.
All right. Let's see. The 2 lifts. What are the lifts referring to?
I'm sorry, where do you see 2 lifts?
Under, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7 down, under items on your replacement track option.
2 lifts is what they do it in. So the first lift is the first pass. So they'll do an 1.5 inch lift, and they'll do another 1.5 inch lift so they can compact it in between.
All right. If you would get back, I'd like to know more about the thickness of it. Yeah, I think some of the subdivisions that we've put in have had 2 inches of asphalt, and they've actually got vehicles driving on them. So, with the, with the 8-inch bed of rock under them.
Mm-hmm.
So, I would be curious about the 3.
Okay. I apologize. Had I known, I would have gotten Dan Dodd on the phone and gotten that answer for you before I came up here.
Well, I think because we did not see the writing being
Yes,
so
ma'am.
small that, and just having gotten the printout allows for better review.
Madam Chair,
Yes, sir.
this is important that we understand, and it's also important that they understand. There's a good mutual understanding on what we're expecting and what they're expected to provide, of course. Would we be better off to ask our questions but not make a decision this evening? And we have a meeting on the 10th of January, which is not far away, and come back and make sure that we understand one another fully.
If that is the choice of the board, sir.
I understand from Dr. Mills, this would not present a problem, and Mark, would that present a problem as far as making, I know it delays us some, but is that going to be a major problem for you or for the project? How do other board members feel about that? I mean, if there's something up in there, we don't want to find out what we're doing after it's done, or, you want us to understand.
I want you guys to fully understand and to, be the one that's driving the train and making the decision and telling me what you would like as far as scope. Now, I will say, I wouldn't be doing my job as an architect if I didn't let you guys know where we are with inflation. We've already seen these numbers go up from the 2020 number to the 2021.
Right.
I'm not saying 1 month is going to make all the difference. I do know that inflation right now is troublesome. So every time we push this back further and further, I can't stand by these numbers as a good cost estimate a month from now because it's such a changing market right now.
I understand that. And I don't particularly enjoy taking the risk of anything costing any more, but, Mr. Boykin, did you ask the questions you wanted to have? Do you have others?
Oh, I just have one other. Design contingency. Is that contingency for the project, or is that contingency for the actual design itself?
It's contingency on the project. So when you go through and you do the design on this type of project, sometimes you need to add things in, whether it's a change order or whether it's an RFI that costs some money. So what you do when you're establishing a cost estimate or budget, you just put in a percentage of contingency to help cover the project.
So it's not contingency as far as the architect is concerned?
It's not coming more money into my pocket because of any reason. It's just to cover, and it's not necessarily that it is getting spent. It's just to make sure that we cover little things here and there as they come up during construction.
I believe that's all I got.
Okay. How do other board members feel about, I mean, if you've got a good enough feel for it, you know what you want to do, I have no problem with that.
I would add, if I'm allowed.
Certainly.
What we can do, if your main concern is that 3 inches of asphalt, then if anything, it would come down, correct? It wouldn't go up, it wouldn't go to 4, it would maybe go to 2. And so we know that that's $232,920. We know that those line item numbers are all encapsulated in this option 1A. So I would ask if that's something that we can go investigate with Dan Dodd as a potential lower cost, but obviously it wouldn't be going up because we wouldn't be adding additional asphalt. I do know just from working with Dan a little bit, they're designing this based separately of, you know, what would go into a subdivision. It's more like a heavy-duty asphalt pavement that trucks would be going on. And I'd asked them about, we were talking mostly about the asphalt drive coming into the track and about an ambulance going over the track if somebody gets hurt on the field. And he was saying that the base can handle an ambulance, and as long as the ambulance is going straight, they won't ruin the track surface itself. So I do know that this is a design more in line with the heavy-duty pavement for trucks than it is for, you know, suburban car, light-duty roadway.
I would certainly hope that an ambulance could make it down a subdivision street.
Well, yes, but there's a difference in a fire loop at a school versus the parking lot.
Well, I mean, I actually am in agreement with his proposal, because, I mean, we can always come back and adjust that number down, but, I mean.
Well, I have no problem with dealing with it now, but I didn't want to enter it unless we were comfortable with it, and they were comfortable too.
I feel comfortable with it. I mean, at the end, what option 1 and option 2 come down to are toilets. And I'm satisfied with the bathroom plan for option 1. Or option 1A is articulated in the meeting, which would give new fixtures inside that bathroom at the back of the concession stand.
And I agree that, you know, 1A is what we actually chose earlier in our meeting to move forward with that, because the concern I have is what he's just stated about that the cost will increase. It may, I'm not sure, because the way it's been since the pandemic has hit, everything has gone up. So that's probably what's gonna happen by the time January the 10th comes around, so I think we need to just go ahead and move forward with 1A.
I have no problem with that. Okay, any further discussion? Hearing none, then on behalf of the Administrative Service Committee, I move that we approve the 1A option, which does include fixtures in the bathroom and concession.
Is there a second?
Second.
It has been moved by Mr. Mercer, seconded, doubly seconded by Mrs. Boyette and Mrs. Powell, that we approve Plan 1A as presented in regard to the bedding field, track and ADA. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion, let it be known by the sign of aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Let the record reflect that the motion carries unanimously. Mr. Mercer?
Thank you.
Thank
Our
you.
third action item is a request for qualification architect for BO Barnes and Lee Woodard Elementary Schools renovations, and the proper procedures have been followed, I understand. And the better price and the high confidence level, the committee felt like that Skinner, Farlow, Kerwin Architects would be the best way to go. I think it was, bids were received from Davis, Kane, and Skinner, Farlow, Kerwin. Any comments or questions? Well, then on behalf of the Administrative Service Committee, I move we approve Skinner, Farlow, Kerwin Architects for the Barnes and Lee Woodard Elementary Schools project.
Second.
It has been moved by Mr. Mercer, seconded by Mr. Breen, that we approve Skinner, Farlow, and Kerwin as the architect for the B.O. Barnes and Lee Woodard school renovations. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion, let it be known by the sign of aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Let the record reflect that the motion carries unanimously. Mr. Mercer?
Yes, ma'am. Our final action item was revised procurement plan, and this was in regards to our nutrition program. I think this is a result of having a new person in place and a new look at it, and being able to also align ourselves with North Carolina Department of Public Instruction. Dr. Williams, do you have any?
No, sir, that was it.
Okay.
And also with our board policy in terms
Yes.
of procurement.
Anyone present at the committee meeting wish to add anything, any questions? Hearing none. On behalf of the Administrative Service Committee, I move the full board approve the revised procurement plan for Wilson County Schools nutrition, that it be approved as recommended by administration.
Second.
It has been moved by Mr. Mercer, seconded by Mrs. Powell and Mr. Breen, that we approve the revised procurement plan as presented by the administration. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion, let it be known by the sign of aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Let the record reflect that the motion carries unanimously.
That concludes my report, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Mercer. Next is the Instructional Services Committee, and we had two informational items. The first of which was contracts requiring board notification for instructional services. Two contracts were presented to the board. First is for Flyleaf, which is providing reading series for third grade text at the amount of $18,838.85. This is information because it does not meet the threshold of needing board approval of $90,000. We had already approved a component of from Flyleaf. But this is the next portion. I think this is dealing with math.
Third grade.
Third grade math.
Reading.
Third grade reading, thank you. And the second was the IdentiKid system. The system that we have is reached its useful life and is now in need of being updated, and so this will provide service for registration at our schools, check-ins for visitors, aligning the tardies with our Power School, and providing a security check-in system, again, under the threshold $90,000 at the amount of $75,415. Are there any questions? The next item that was for information was PRC 184 homeless funding through ESSER 3. And I will let Dr. Wilson handle that one.
Ms. May, Dr. King, and Amy High, they worked together to complete the application for the homeless ESSER 3 funding, PRC 184. And as a part of that, there's some after-school academic support for the students, as well as some much-needed supplies for the families. And that would be anywhere from the students, maybe their clothing, it could be mattresses, it could be food, whatever those needs happen to be. It's a very vague and broad kind of help that we can provide them. As a part of the after school, there will be transportation provided. And we have 98 homeless students that will be supporting. And so we have two different pots of money. There's about $20,000 previously that was shared, and then we'll use that money first before we go into what is on this particular crisis, $109,025.
Okay. Are there any questions? This too was an informational item. Any questions? All right, Mr. Mercer, I'm going to turn the meeting over to you because the next portion deals with action items. At our last board meeting in November, the administration was tasked with revising our school calendar to provide for an optional teacher workday, because built into the calendar there was an extremely long stretch without a break. And so the board asked them to consider being able to switch out an instructional day for an optional teacher workday. The administration has labored and done that and is presenting to you today an option in February for the 21st of February to create that as an optional teacher workday. We'll entertain any questions that you may have regarding this. Hearing none, upon the recommendation of the Instructional Services Committee, Mr. Vice Chair, I move that the 2021-2022 calendar be revised as presented by the administration to allow for February 21st to become an optional teacher workday.
Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded that the 2021-22 calendar be revised to change February the 21st from a regular day to an optional work day as recommended by administration. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor, aye? Aye. Opposed, like sign. It carries unanimously, Madam Chair.
All right. Mr. Vice Chair, members of the board, the next items on the agenda are policy revisions that second read. It is the recommendation of the Instructional Services Committee that the policies be approved, beginning with item B on your agenda through item M, unless there are any call for or need to remove anyone for discussion outside of block at this time.
I would ask that we discuss item M separate and apart from B through L.
All right. It was the pleasure of the committee to handle them all, but Mr. Breen is asking that we remove currently item M from the block. Is that a consensus of the members of the board?
I have no problem.
All right. Then, Mr. Vice Chair, on behalf of the Instructional Services Committee, I move that we approve as a second reading the revised policies presented on your agenda, beginning with policy 1310/4002, parental involvement.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I'm sorry to interrupt. The item H on the agenda is in tandem with M, so I think we'd have to pull both of those out to make it clear what we decide to do. So everything but H and M could be covered all at once without objection by the board.
All right. We've already said we pull M, and if H is in connection with M, is that your pleasure, members of the board? Yes. Thank you. Then, Mr. Vice Chair, on behalf of the Instructional Services Committee, I move that revised policies B, C, D, E, F, G, I, J, K, and L, as presented on your board agenda, be approved as a second read. And if I need to call out the numbers and the titles, I will be happy to do so.
Second.
It's been moved properly seconded that we approve as a second reading policies, revised policies B, C, D, E, F, G, I, and J, and L.
K.
And K and L. All of them except H and M, and I don't know why that would be significant, the H and M. But It's been moved that we approve those as a group. All listed except the H&M. Any further discussion or question? Hearing none, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. They have been approved unanimously.
All right.
Now, I would think that we would discuss M, and then from that, we would decide how it impacts H.
Well,
Take it away.
it pleases the board. And I'm not a fan of equine abuse by any means, but I will beat this horse until I feel like it sufficiently does. The student search policy as articulated in the revised policy, I still contend the part about student cell phone searches is overly broad as it pertains to school infractions, board policies, code of conduct, or violations of the law. And I understand the position by administration. I understand the position of the North Carolina School Board Association and the hard work that our attorneys have done in trying to work this language out. But I feel it's incumbent, as a board member, that if I see a potential forward abuse of a policy, that I have to speak out against that policy. I think there's a less restrictive language, or more narrowly tailored language, that could accomplish the same goals, which are the goals of that policy, than what's articulated. As I stated previously whenever the last time this came up, I think it was October meeting, I think just including language about how only allowing student searches of cell phones in the case of immediate and apparent threats of violence to school employees, personnel, and/or students would be sufficient. And I would ask I keep wanting to say the court, I would ask the board to consider amending those lines to reflect that as opposed to this broad swath of infractions, code of conduct violations, board policy violations, and violations of law.
Mr. Breen,
Yes, ma'am.
did you and Ms. Cornetta have any discussion to have a better meeting of the mind with a tailoring of the language, since you have expressed your objections in regard to this particular policy?
No discussion since October.
What is your thinking, Ms. Cornell?
So, members of the board, I understand completely where Mr. Breen is coming from. The language that you all have talked about time and time again is to protect the students and the staff. And I understand the balancing act that's necessary from the administration. I believe that Dr. Mills has some information from our principals on how they feel about the policy, which I believe you all wanted to hear.
Yeah, we talked with the principals at our monthly meeting last week, and as you would expect, there's much more experience on the occasions that we do have to look at cell phone at the high school level. That tends to be the areas much more than any other school level. But what really was surprising was that we heard more from the elementary principals at the meeting, and the fact that they really felt it was important that they had access to access a student's cell phone when the conditions warranted. And then typically what they were seeing was that a lot of their issues came back to issues of threats made to a student or against a student on a phone or on a social media platform on a phone, not on a laptop or a Chromebook. High school, middle school principals certainly have seen issues and you've seen those across the state with social media issues. We certainly had our share of those as well, but and senior staff was there at the meeting as well as executive directors, but I was really kind of, I wasn't expecting the response I got from elementary principals who were having the impact of cell phone platforms and some of the things that were carrying over. None of them indicated this was a daily occurrence by any means. It was not a frequent occurrence, and that went from K through 12. But in those cases where things were happening, it was frequently targeting and things going on through social media apps on phones. I do have a concern with some of the escalation, and Mr. Brady's pointed some of that out, so is Ms. Cornett, and so is the board. I do have concerns as administrator about the fact that we've seen some increasing violence across our country with issues going on for whatever reason. And so I do have concerns about not being able to access electronic communication devices of our students quickly, or limiting them in some way that might make it more difficult. I realize that Mr. Brennan's talked about language, and that's for y'all to decide. But unfortunately, I do think it's an occurrence that we do have to prepare for, and anywhere these days. And so those escalations across the country do cause pause for any administrator or any school leader. And we did ask the principals. I mean, I did ask that, and you encouraged that. So our folks are saying it is something that they do not do often. They don't do lightly. This is, again, not a common occurrence. But they do need access to that. I don't want to have a delay in the process for that. But because of the safety concerns, I do realize there's privacy issues and there's concerns from the public and others that you have to decide. But I will tell you that from the folks we've been supervising and working with, that's not been the case. And I also realize that people change and conditions change. But I don't think it's fair to ask us to do some of the things we need to do on a daily basis without access to some of these devices readily, when folks are bringing them into our buildings and using them for a variety of means. And I do think they need them. They need them to contact their parents, they need them to have arrangements made, but I do think we need access to them when these situations arise. And so I just think that was the feedback we got. So aside from that, I think y'all have to decide what level of limitations you will put on that. But our principals were very adamant, and I agree with them, that we do need access to that readily. And I don't want them to feel like they can't do that without fear of reprisal, because they have a very difficult job to do. And when those situations arise, it is extremely stressful. I mean, so.
I think that the limiting language that I suggest addresses those concerns.
And that's fine. I'm giving you feedback from the principals, and again, they were very appreciative of the fact that they were allowed to provide input and were encouraged to provide input. So they're doing it every day. But again, my biggest shock was the biggest voice I heard was from some of the elementary principals. I was not expecting that. And that's not to give the impression that schools aren't safe, but that just shows you this is not a teen issue. This is a tween, preteen issue as well. So everybody's got a cell phone.
And the limiting language that you suggested is different in what way from what is outlined here in red for us?
Starting at line 19, may be searched when there's a reasonable belief that a student is an imminent threat to faculty, staff, or other students. And then strike the rest of it, all the way to the scope of such searches.
Starting with line 19, may be searched whenever a school official has reason to believe the search, and you want all of that stricken?
Yeah, the violation of law, board policy, code of student conduct,
Right.
or school report. and that to be replaced with, there's a reasonable belief of imminent harm to school, faculty, staff, and students, and/or students.
So give me an example, I'm sorry.
Reasonable belief of imminent threat, is that what you said?
Yes.
Madam Chair, can I ask a question?
Yes, you may.
It may be easier than to give an example for. Can you give me an example of what you couldn't do in that case, then, Mr. Breen? Because I'm not an attorney.
What you mean if my language were adopted?
Mm-hmm.
So for example, if.
I'm not being smart, really.
I understand.
I'm just
So,
asking.
for example, cheating is a violation of our board policy, student code of conduct, and all. Under the current board policy, an administrator or staff or school personnel can go into that phone and search for evidence of cheating. Well, where exactly does that evidence lie? Is it on social media? Is it buried in somebody's notes? Is it in their gallery under pictures? Is it within their text messages? It's really difficult to discern where that information may be.
Fighting, would fighting be one?
Fighting on campus?
Fighting on campus. Is that imminent threat or not?
Well, that would be after the fact.
Well,
So a fight which occurred on campus would not be covered, but if there was a fight that was being planned to be occurred, then that would present an imminent threat of harm to students.
See, that's where I think we get into some limitations to
See.
that would hurt the safety and security of our buildings over time. Because I mean, those are typically things that get recorded, and not the cheating piece and all this, but you know, some of the events that are unfortunate that do happen. If fighting is considered to be, and it's not being planned, but it's after the fact, the investigation piece of that would be important to be able to access. But in that situation, we couldn't do that.
But I think in a lot of the circumstances, especially a lot of the ones that are articulated, more often than not, those videos get posted. So there is a recipient on one end, and that's not necessarily the doer. That could be anybody coming back in to report that has seen the video.
I think that's going to be the case regardless of any of it.
And if it's the recipient, then we don't need to search the phone of the person who did it, because we've got the sender already. So all we're doing is seeking validation of.
So we need to wait till it's posted on social media to get it?
Well, I mean, is the plan to search everybody you think might be involved
No.
in a fight?
No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying when things happen, they're out and about. So I just think that's the piece that starts limiting access to things that contain issues that happen that cause other issues in our schools. I'm not trying to joust. I really am not. I'm just saying that's the piece that puts folks in the gray areas that really concern me, because I think our folks try and do the right thing every day. So I don't want to put them in a spot.
Let me interject something. As an example, there's a fight at school. No one knew it was going to happen. I'm one of the faculty members. I try to break it up into process. I see a student recording it.
Mm-hmm.
That student has, on your wordage, as I understand, has every right to say, this presents no threat to anybody. You don't get to look at it.
Mm-hmm.
Where I think I should be able to go to them and say, and not search through the whole thing, search that see that video.
Mm-hmm.
I think I should be able to do that. They're not involved in the fight. They didn't present a threat. But it's either that or wait till it's on social media. And I think we're better served, and we're better serving our students to be able to see it soon.
But if you break up that fight, you're there and can identify, hopefully, those students.
Oh, identifying them is one thing. But, for example, when there's a third person involved in the fight, that phone might lead you to understand, was that third person trying to break it up, or was that third person double teaming one of the other people, which has a big impact on their punishment. So, I mean, I don't think there's a easy way, and I understand what you're saying, and I agree that we shouldn't mistreat anybody or be overly invasive. But I don't want to tie the hands of the principals that's protecting all these kids. And I don't want to just turn loose anybody just to look at any phone they want to look at. I think we have to guard it, and if somebody misuses this policy, I think Dr. Mills has every right to deal with them if it's a principal. And I don't think anybody, I think it should be an administrator would be the one. If I'm a teacher, I should say I saw that student recording it and let the administrator go to that person and possibly check the phone, if that were the case. It gets so turned around and complicated in issues at school, and who was, no, I just stumbled into it, or did they plan it?
Mm-hmm.
And that could be, clarified sometimes by the telephone.
Now, I don't want to date you, but you were an administrator for several years.
Many years.
Many years.
And look, the phones then were so big, they couldn't hide them.
Yeah, couldn't hide them, couldn't record anything.
They were attached to things with lines to you.
I do still interact with administrators, and I have had to try to determine things that were very difficult. And it's hard to hold somebody to task when you have trouble absolutely believing, say that there's a slight possibility they were not involved. It kind of tempers how you can deal with things. And the principals need to know as much as they can. I absolutely do not want anybody abusing the privacy of a child or anyone else. But while you don't want it to be overly open and someone can abuse it, I don't want it to be overly restrictive and they not be able to do what they need to do. I think that's somewhere in between there. I think is a good spot. And I can't say exactly what the wordage for that would be. Yes, Ms. Gordon.
And Mr. Mercer, you're exactly right. Where we draw the line is what the whole conversation is about. I mean, I would really just implore you all to think about the board policies that you've enacted under law. If you're asking your administrators to use every tool available to them to protect the students and staff, then I think the way that this is drafted is the way the board goes. If, however, you think it needs to be narrower, then Mr. Breen's version is semi-protecting, but also protecting the interests of students whose cell phones are searched. I don't know a disciplinary situation where a cell phone is not involved. In the past 4 years of working with this board.
Either it started because something on the phone or somebody's recording it. I agree.
I mean, cell phones are ubiquitous. If we're going to ban them, that would take care of this, but that's not going to happen. We need to teach accountability to our students and staff. And I respect what Mr. Breen is trying to do.
I do too.
But I think the language in H in regards to, I think it's contained in H, regarding administration setting up limitations on when and where funds can be used within the school building, addresses part of those issues.
And I think that's good too. And I think the expectation now is that, I should be able to maintain contact. We did that battle a while back too, and it was a battle. I use that word because it was very difficult time-wise of when things were changing, when cell phones were first available and people were making them free and open to use, and now you see them in part of the daily lives everywhere. And so saying just there's no cell phone usage zones or times and all, I think that's gone. I think we'll spend more time policing that than we would some of the other things. I mean, I think that's going backwards on this some, and I don't think there's a way to. They're going to be there. I mean, I think that's just me from talking with principals and having input. So I think that's.
In my years of administration, dealing with such things, it was an unspoken kind of deal please don't come to me telling on somebody for chewing gum in class. Or something like that. But please come to me when things were serious. Someone intended to hurt somebody and somebody planned on destroying property, schools, roads, the serious matters. And I always knew what was going on because students would come to me and let me know when something serious was about to happen or what they saw and so forth. And that's what I kind of see here. I don't have a problem with tempering a tab where it says just any school rule. If that means you're supposed to walk a certain way down the hall, I don't think it ought to be videoed or somebody have to go through a big rigmarole because he walked the wrong direction in the hall, and that's a school rule. But it comes a point where it is important.
Well, how about this? So that there's a reasonable belief that the student is that there's an imminent threat of violence or harm to student, faculty, or staff, or during the investigation of a crime of violence.
I'm just going to speak for principals and what we've seen come to us. The decision-making that goes into what's imminent at the time you have to act with the information that you have in a school with all the pieces moving in today's world with all the things that are happening that can be done, the liability, the responsibility, the sheer demands of that. I don't know that anyone would know what's imminent or not, but I would tell you that would take everything as that, because it seems that from what we've seen lately nationwide, very innocuous things can escalate very quickly. So I think that's going to make a difficult decision even more difficult. And I don't want our folks second guessing about imminent or not imminent when I just rather them just go ahead and take action and do something to likely prevent, or if not, say, okay, here's the next step, sorry. I think we're putting too many decision points on something that's too fluid.
But that, in cases like that, the alert of the imminent threat is derived from the recipient of the message from the sender.
But not all these are messages either.
I know, I understand that they're social media posts, but the report that's being made initially to school comes from the recipient of the message from the sender. So you already have the sender.
I just think you're at a point where you're going to have to decide if you want these devices to be in our schools and used ubiquitously as they are now, then there's some pieces and parts that are going to have sway. And our administrators need that sway, not for any other reason than they're trying to do their jobs, and they do a great job. So I think the limitations that you're placing with language, in all fairness, are just unrealistic for somebody trying to manage a school of 1,200 with all the moving parts, and there's 3 administrators, and all the things that can go on. I think you really need to think about the limitations you're placing on that one piece for things that can happen. I'm just being, I don't mean to sound gloom and doom, but it is not the same as it has been in the past. I think our schools work very hard to have relationships with their students and know what's going on, and I think we have SROs and we have lots of things in place. But having access to those devices when something has happened or may happen is very quick, and I don't think our folks are taking them to scroll through and do all the other stuff. I know you know that too, but I think as you limit this, then my feeling is let's don't bring them in, because I mean everything that's come to my desk without maybe a handful have involved some communication therein before or after or during with a device that would be limited, because it would be an imminent threat. It would just be something that would be extremely disruptive but wouldn't fit imminent threat, or would cause me concern as a parent that I wouldn't want to see happen. So the imminent threat piece or some languages in there, I think this is just a pinch point.
Who makes the initial disclosure to administration, either at the school level or when it finally comes across your desk?
It could, I mean, it could vary.
How often is it the center? that the information is originally taken from.
Oh, so you're just talking, I don't know, I have to go back and look. I think, again, if you want to go and just focus just on that one device and one sender, that one thing, yeah, I think you can make a case for this, but that's not what I'm talking about. You're talking about every cell phone, and it's like Mr. Mercer said, when things happen, everybody's got a phone, so everything's out. So this, again, I think you're putting our administrators in a tough spot to do what they need to do by limiting this. I'm just speaking for my administrators. You need to understand this is going to make it very challenging and very concerning. So,
Mr. Vice Chair,
Yes, ma'am.
I know that we could continue this discussion at length, and I don't know that there would be a lack of continuation of the discussion. It is the recommendation of the Instructional Services Committee that these two policies as a second read be approved. Therefore, I move that we approve for the second read items H and M of the agenda under the Instructional Services Committee.
Do we have a second?
I second.
Ms. Barnes? It's been moved by Dr. Fitch, second by Ms. Barnes, that on the recommendation of the instructional committee, that full board approved items or revised policies H and M. Any further comments or questions? Hearing none, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign.
No.
No.
It has been approved with a 5-2 vote, sending Mr. Boykin and Mr. Brown. I think that concludes, and it's all yours, isn't it?
All right. The next item on the agenda is a discussion information item. The first item for information is qualified observer list. Dr. Mills or Dr. Parker?
Yes, Madam Chair, members of the board, what you see before you is for your consideration for information, the 21-22 qualified observer list. This item comes into play when somebody, a teacher is placed in a mandatory improvement plan and they are in they're not in a low performing school.
They're not what?
They're not in a low performing school.
Oh, okay.
As you know, all of our schools with the exception of 4 are not low performing. And so the person who is subject to a mandatory improvement plan has the option to have someone to be an objective observer and can pull from this list to be a part of that observation chain.
So would these persons replace the school administrator?
No.
No.
No. In most cases, there is a series of observations, and this will be one of them, but it would not replace the administration.
Okay. So the teachers or the person in question could pull from this list
If they wished.
if they wish to?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, in my experience, it's only happened one time in my career, that was in a different county.
Okay.
It's an option if they wish to.
Okay, so it could be the person who is a teacher like themselves, or it could be someone from central office administration, or anyone from here. Okay. Members of the board, do you have any other questions in regard to this? And the qualified observer list is something that is required by the state to have in place?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, by statute, yes.
Okay.
Yes,
Mrs.
ma'am.
Barnes?
we have mentors for beginning teachers.
That's correct.
Are they a part of a qualified observer, or do they qualify as a qualified observer?
No, ma'am.
They do not.
Well, a mentor for beginning teachers should be there for support and not for evaluation purposes. So the idea of the qualified observer list is to have someone who's kind of set apart, it can be quote unquote objective, a person kind of set apart to come in and give a quote unquote, someone who isn't quote, I guess, tainted or doesn't have any pre-experience with that teacher. That's the whole idea, and a mentor would, because they would have, a previous relationship with that person.
And these would be for, other than the mandatory number of observations that the teacher would have to have, or a part of that number that
Yes,
required.
depending on what schedule that particular teacher is in terms of being, licensure status they are, that determines the number of observations they have. If that person's put in a mandatory improvement plan, additional observations can be added to that particular schedule, and then, of course, the teacher can choose to add someone if they wish from this list.
All right. Are there other questions in regard to the qualified observer list? Hearing none, we'll go to action items. The first of which is long-term substitute pay proposal.
I have this one also. So in an effort to support our substitutes who go above and beyond the call of duty, as it were, we proposed a couple of enhanced pay rates for substitutes. So if you look at the proposal, the top two is the current ones are for non-certified and certified subs, and then the proposed are enhanced pay rates, and those enhanced pay rates will only qualify if they did the following bulleted duties.
All right.
Madam Chair,
Yes, sir.
if they're a long-time sub, they need to be qualified and fulfilling the top things listed on here, such as lesson plans, teaching content, and so forth, for the sake of the students academically. So I'm in favor. If they can do those things, I think they should be paid the suggested rate.
Okay.
Madam Chair.
Mrs. Boyette?
Couple of questions. I agree, I would like to see under the proposed long-term certified sub-pay, I wish it could be 150 instead of 125, and the long-term certified sub-pay with a teaching licensure in that area, 175. Those would be my suggestions. But here's the another real question. The first one is a long-term, non-certified sub-pay, so someone with no license.
Yes, ma'am.
I can't see how a long-term, non-certified sub could create lesson plans. And, yes, they can teach the content, but how could someone that is not certified create lesson? You understand my concept here? How could why would we want a long-term sub that wasn't certified creating lesson plans?
Have we not had some certified teachers who did not maintain their certification, who know how to do lesson plans, end up in long-term sub situations?
That would have been my response. We've had some people who allowed their certification to expire, still have that skill set.
But if I still have problems with if someone's not certified, or has never been certified, just anyone with a high school degree creating lesson plans for a math class or a science class or anything like that.
And I completely understand your point, and to also say this doesn't happen in a vacuum. These people work with grade level and subject level teams. So, they attend POCs, they're a part of the school community. So
completely, you don't want someone who isn't quote-unquote qualified to create lesson plans, but they won't do them all on their own.
Yeah, my suggestion was going to be that if we had anyone that was non-certified, that their plan should be overseen by a certified teacher.
Yes.
Some clarity on what no license means.
Right, right.
Yes.
But if they can't perform the list down here of the things, they aren't going to be classified as a long-term sub anyway, are they? I mean, not at the higher rate. What I understand, it looks like to me they'd have to be just a regular non-certified sub at $80 a day, which means they're there to supervise almost.
Right, right, and I agree with that, but, you know, this led me to believe that someone that was $80 rate, non-certified, could be a long-term sub and qualify for the higher rate.
If you look at the table, it's a logical step. That's what you're saying.
And could they even be given rights to Power School? I didn't think a non-certified person could be given rights to get in the Power School system and put in grades and grade papers. I thought that was all governed by our code of ethics, that who was supposed to be looking at student data and entering it. So those are my concerns. But yes, I do very, very much want to see our long-term subs, especially some that we've heard from who did everything that a normal teacher does for sub pay, get paid at a higher rate. I know they have in counties around us, and I very much agree with us doing that. And I'd like for it to be retroactive back to the beginning of this semester, so that we might be able to keep some of those people for the second semester, especially in positions where they have not been able to hire a certified person, like in the high school area. If you had someone in math that was teaching a math class, did everything that a regular teacher does the first semester, and only got the lower rate, and they're going to quit, then let's give them the higher rate next time and make it retroactive so that they could work. And we don't have a classroom that doesn't have a certified teacher in it.
Yes, ma'am.
Question, different kind of scenario.
Sure.
A high school, and I know of one, that has 2 individuals that they consider as long-term subs that's there every day. They may not be in the same classroom.
Yes, ma'am.
But they may be teaching a class of art, and then they're doing something, but they're daily, every day. Who would they fall under this?
Well, according to this particular model, it's not about time served, it's about duties done. So if they are doing the duties that are above and beyond just supervisory, then they will qualify for the higher rate. Otherwise, they will just be on the regular. So
That's the $80 per day.
yes, ma'am, if they're not certified.
I mean,
they have a license.
Of course, when I read it, I understood that to move from to the proposed long-term, the higher pay, these 7 items, they were going to be able to perform that and show that they could, I guess. I don't.
Yes, sir. In the summer.
That way, I wouldn't have a problem with somebody not certified could be a college graduate with a lot of experience in an area and be very, very capable of learning to do these things, although they aren't certified. I'm afraid, though, when you get to someone with a high school and not, that's good to have a high school diploma, but they aren't trained, and they shouldn't be expected to be able to do those things.
Absolutely.
So, you know, I like the higher pay. I agree with Ms. Boyer. I hope that we can do this and somewhere look at making it higher, because we need these folks. So.
But just for my peace of mind, and maybe I missed it, in the situations that Ms. Barnes was describing, would those teachers qualify for the long-term sub pay? Even though, you know, they may be teaching, maybe sitting in art one day and in English the next? Or are they gonna get $80 for one day and $140 for the next? They would not?
Long term typically is when someone's out on maternity leave and someone agrees to
Okay.
take it for a month
Okay,
or
so
two.
that goes back to what we were talking about, where it's the activities,
Yeah.
activities performed. Okay.
I know what long-term is, I'm sorry, but in this particular case, I feel like if someone is there every day, and they're being moved from this position to the office one day, to art another day,
You're talking about continuity of.
yeah, they
service
deserve
versus
more than just
position.
the 80, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Can I interject? And
Yes.
some counties are paying bonuses for teachers that substitute a certain number of days in a month.
Okay.
And wouldn't that cover what you were saying if someone was not there in an interim or, therefore in one classroom, but if they were there every day, they're all, like you're saying, moving around, and they did it 20 school days a month, and they did it 10, 15,
Service,
whatever.
not position, service,
Uh-huh.
not position. I think that's what you're saying, Ms.
I think
Barnes.
that would be the way
Yeah.
to manage that, is a bonus if they're needed in the school every day, just different places.
But-
They should benefit from that.
But you might need to reclassify that and not call it a long-term,
Mm-mm.
Yeah,
because
there's ways to do
that's
too.
different
It is.
than,
Just, if it were a bonus, you could describe the bonus would be because you're serving in school X percent of the time. And that might be better than a number of days, because like in December, there might not be enough days to get to it, but if you were there a percent of the time,
Are you talking about a monthly bonus, a yearly bonus? or-
monthly bonus.
Monthly bonus.
The ones
That's
that
what
I've
I
heard of.
understood.
And I just feel like they do deserve, because, they're teaching they're in the capacity of a teacher when they're in those classrooms. They're not certified,
Right.
but they're everyday, reliable, dependable.
Yes, ma'am.
So they don't have to worry about going online and calling for a sub, because they know these two people are there every day. And it's really worked out for this particular school. So that's the question I have.
So the logistics for that, for instance, a typical work month is about 21 days.
Uh-huh.
So you either establish a number of days out of the 21, or like Mr. Mercer suggested, because December and April are shortened months, is there a certain percentage of the month?
Okay.
75, say 80% of days served.
Okay.
And then those things, then the challenge is to go back retroactively, count the days accurately. The bookkeeper would have to do so.
Mhm.
And then those bonuses will be paid accordingly. Now, the question is also is whether or not you want to keep the current construct as it is and add something else in that, kind of tailored to the time piece, or? do
Yeah,
you
you
want
may.
to-
I would think you would. I don't know.
And may I speak in the part about raising it to, at $125 a day, that's not even $17 an hour for a person with a 4-year degree. And $140 a day, that's still not $20 for,
To answer your question about this, on the current pay scale, the max you can pay per day is $159, which qualifies as $21.20. Under the new pay scale, it's going to be just effective. It's $161 a day, and it's $21.46. Now, that's in the state scale now. I don't know if
Okay.
you propose to pay above and beyond the state rate with local funds, but that's what the state scale allows.
so the highest was 161?
Yes, ma'am.
Has been 159 to
Okay.
raise.
well, since this is an action, can we ask you to go back and to consider the questions that have been raised in terms of time served, in terms of a change in rate, whether or not you're going to keep the current, along with something in the proposed? Is this something that we have to definitively have an answer to today, or can we send that back to the drawing board and ask that to come forward?
We did talk about some different monetary amounts as well, trying to look back and see what we can sustain and do as well, so we can do all that and go back.
Members of the board, are you sufficiently willing to ask them to go back and re-examine this and come back with a different proposal possibly the next meeting.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And can we look at making it retroactive if in some, as much as possible for those that met all of those 7
We've typically
criteria?
done that when we've done stuff like that.
Okay, thank you.
All right, then we will table this particular point and have it come back to us at our January meeting. Thank you very much. The next item on the agenda is the Wilson County Schools National Board Support Program.
Yes, so in an effort to support teachers who are interested in becoming National Board Certified, we're proposing a program that would supplement the amount of registration. So the first slide talks about what's National Board Certification. I imagine many of you are familiar with it. It's a volunteer advanced teaching credential that goes beyond state licensure. Currently, we have 72 teachers in Wilson County Schools who are National Board Certified, and if you look at the comparison to our other counties, as you also know, there are some gains in terms of months of additional learning for those who achieve National Board Certification, and it's also a 12% increase in pay after that person achieves certification.
I did have just a couple of questions in regard to this.
Yes.
And I saw your chart that showed five teachers, 1 actually earned. On an average per year, how many of our teachers apply on an annual basis? Is it always the 5, or is it higher, lower? And then how many on an average, once they are certified, do we lose annually?
What was that last question?
How many on an average do we lose annually once they have become certified? I know that they have to give us 2 years or whatever the number of years, but after that, how many on the average do we typically lose?
I believe Ms. Carrie Jernison answered the first question as far as how many people apply, which she's currently tracking our number of applicants. As far as resignations, I can go back and find out how many resignations over the last so many months.
Resignations and/or retirements?
Retirements, yes. How many might be National Board Certified when they finally decide to depart from? Okay. We can get that information for you.
Yeah.
Okay, I saw your chart that showed, going back to 2017-18, that there were 5 new initial registered candidates, but only 1 was initially certified. So when we have those numbers like that, and I know some years we have had a bumper crop to get certified, but on an average, is our yearly average about 5 to 10 persons who go through that process? Because I know it's a very lengthy process.
Yes, that is about the average that are applying, registering for the initial process of National Board. But being that it is a 3-year process now, whereas when National Board was first recognized in the state of North Carolina and across the United States, it was a 1-year process.
Yes.
So now it's a 3-year process. So when you see that someone has initially registered, they may be taking 3 to 5 years to actually certify. They have 3 years to complete the entire process. If they do not certify in those 3 years, they have 2 more years to retake items and try to certify. So 3 years to complete the process, but 5 years total to try to certify.
Okay. And that is a big difference from when it started, okay? Because when I looked at the numbers, I was going, we used to have a ton of people at one time, and we not only apply, but actually receive their certification. So I was thinking that the number was low, was not realizing that there was a change in that process.
And before, North Carolina was paying for the certification process when we were having large numbers of folks applying to certify.
Okay.
So these folks that you're seeing here, they're paying for it out of pocket.
But they are eligible for reimbursement of up to $1,900.
If approved by the board.
If approved, okay.
Yes.
I just wanted to compliment Ms. Jerrington back in the back. I used to work with National Board Certified Teachers way back when. We had one that came to us from Wayne County, and then we had 7 to gain it, and 6 of them went to Wake County. And it was really embarrassing, but it's great to see the work you put into this program and how much it has evolved.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, you may. I'm sorry.
You're right. How much does it typically cost for a teacher to become board certified?
So all the certification, all the components equal up to $1,900. Now, the yearly certification fee is $75, and that the program doesn't cover. But once someone's in the program, they have to pay the annual $75 registration fee for that 5-year period they have to get it.
So it wouldn't be much over the 19?
Correct.
All right.
Just everything except the yearly registration.
And if they get it, then they get a 12% bump in their pay.
That's correct.
So,
We'll work there. We'll work there after.
okay. Any other questions? So I see this as an action item. So what is the pleasure of the board?
Madam Chair,
Mr. Breen?
I move that we adopt the Wilson County Schools National Board Support Program.
Second.
It has been moved by Mr. Breen, seconded by Mr. Mercer, that we approve the Wilson County Schools National Board Support Program as outlined by the administration. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor of the motion, let it be known by the sign of aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Let the record reflect that the motion carries unanimously. Mrs. Barnes?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I move that the Wilson County Board of Education go into closed session to consider confidential personnel matters as provided in North Carolina General Statute S 143-318, 11A1 and 6, and 115C-319 through 321 to consider confidential student matters as provided in North Carolina General Statutes 143-318, 11A1 and North Carolina General Statutes 115C-402 and the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act 20 U.S.C. 1232G to consult with the Board of Education attorney to preserve the attorney-client privilege as provided in North Carolina General Statutes 143-318, 11A3.
Second.
It has been moved by Mrs. Barnes, seconded by Mr. Mercer, that the Wilson County Board of Education go into closed session to consider confidential personnel matters as provided in North Carolina General Statutes 143-318.11A1 and 6 and 115C-319 through 321. To consider confidential student matters as provided in North Carolina General Statutes 143-318.11A1 and North Carolina General Statutes 115C-402 and the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act 20 of the United States Code 1232G to consult with the Board of Education attorney to preserve the attorney-client privilege as provided in North Carolina General Statutes 143-318.11A3. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor of the motion, let it be known by the sign of aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Let the record reflect that the motion carries unanimously and we are adjourned to closed session.